Hey Sainers, how's it going? Welcome back to the Saints TV YouTube channel. In this video I just want to quickly talk about where the list is at. Mainly the sort of out of contract players. Obviously yesterday the club made some calls already. So on the Tuesday, only 3 days after the final, they had their exit interviews, I think on the Monday, which a bit came from that. So we'll talk about that particularly with Jade Gresham. But I thought we'd go through the list of out of contract Sainers and maybe where they sit at the moment, because I feel like all of them, there's an interesting sort of story there and what their future holds, whether it's at St Kilda or somewhere else. So quickly, we just want to mention that Jack Bytel, Connolly, Jack Peris and Oscar Adams, that was announced yesterday by the club that they won't be offered a contract beyond this year. So I think, a couple of them, at least Bytel, I think should be picked up by another club potentially. But yeah, Jack Peris as well. Oscar Adams didn't get a game, and Leo Connolly obviously did during lockdown in 2021. So yeah, we wish them all the best in their future endeavours. But those are some tough calls. But I dare say that's only the tip of the iceberg. I think there's going to be a few more big calls coming. So let's go through some of these players and see what we think. So I've got the list here. And we'll just go from top to bottom. So DMACC, that's a player that's out of contract. He's been at the club for 9 years. We know he's been injured. He's been out of the side. It's been just bad luck after bad luck story for DMACC. He's an unrestricted free agent. I'd like to think that we would persist with him just for the 1 year. I think that would be worth it. He's a player that I think could be moulded into a very, very important player under a Ross Lyon-led team. It's just really annoying that we haven't seen him this year, so it could be one of those things where it's just bad luck and we just have to make the tough call. But he just hasn't gotten his body right all season, so that could be a big factor in the next steps for him. Hunter Clark, non-free agent, 6 years at the club. Obviously last year was linked to North Melbourne. That was a big talking point towards the back end of that trade period. He's played a lot of games this year. I think he's played at least 18 to 20 games. Was okay in the final, but again, one of those players where, if we want to get, better draft picks, if we want to improve our draft hand, if we want to get picks to use on other players that we want to get in, he's probably one of the rare players that in this list will have value. That's the thing is, who's got value if we wanted to hear offers. And I think Hunter Clark, obviously 24, I think he is old. Top 10 draft pick 6 years ago, whatever it was. I think, there's some value there, but I personally would love to persist with Hunter Clark. I love what he brings to the table, but I also understand that, he hasn't probably put it all together like we thought he might, and, his pressure game and probably his two-way running still isn't up to quite the level that we would want, for a Ross Lyon team, and we kind of saw that in the final, the Giants running back and forth in waves, and he was just kind of struggling. I think he laid the one tackle, so that kind of says kind of where he's at the moment, but I do love Hunter Clark. Bytel obviously delisted, Jack Peris delisted, Jade Gresham, the biggest talking point obviously for us, and it was interesting hearing Ross Lyon talk about it on AFL 360 the other night, about the fact that I think his agent said to the club, don't put a contract offer to him. I think we want him. I think we're happy if he wants to stay. But obviously, the fact that we haven't put a contract to him means, maybe you can go look around. You can go have a chat with some other clubs. We're happy for you to do that. But, we're always here to discuss moving forward as a St Kilda player. I think Carlton are less interested now. The fact that they've got their smalls going, Motlop, Owies in particular, have been really good for them. They're still in finals, so that'll delay any discussions anyway. And then the other club that's kind of come out of the woodwork is Essendon. So Essendon seem to be losing a lot of players, by the way. But they supposedly are interested in Jade Gresham. Not surprising. Tippum Woody's retired. Stringer, he's kind of on his last legs at the moment. Didn't have a great year. Didn't get on the park very often. And their other small forward stocks are kind of non-existent when you think about them. So Jade Gresham to Essendon, I can kind of see that happening. Don't know what we would get in return. Gresh I think he played the 23 games. Was one of our better players in the elimination final, I thought. Obviously, he's got something. He's got a spark. He's got some X factor. We all know that. That's why we play him. But then he's also got some limitations to his game. To me, yeah, he's obviously the one player that if you look to get rid of, you definitely want to get something big back. It just depends on where he's at, whether he wants to persist with Ross Lyon, maybe take a bit less money, but fight for his spot and really develop as a player, or go to somewhere like an Essendon, play as a permanent small forward on probably some big money. That's up to him. So it's very interesting to hear Ross's thoughts. Check it out on AFL 360 from Monday night. He shed a bit more light into that. But yeah, he said we want to keep him, but we're open for him to explore his options, basically. Jimmy Webster's unrestricted free agent. I thought he had a good season, so I dare say if he wants to, I don't think he's going to retire, but who knows? He's been around for 12 years. Maybe that could be something. He had his milestone game on the weekend, played okay, but for the majority of the season, he's been preferred over, obviously, Ben Patton and, at times Liam Stocker. So, yeah, I think Webster could go on for maybe one more year, but I'm not sure. Leo Connolly delisted. Liam Stocker, I think obviously should get a couple of years. You'd think. He's an unrestricted free agent, so I thought he had a pretty good season. He was brought in into the final. I think he was the sub, and he's been the sub a few times this season, but he's also played a lot of good footy. So, yeah, I don't think there's any issues there. Nick Coffield is another one, like Hunter Clark, where it's like top 10 draft pick, hasn't come on, but... And similar to Hunter Clark as well, the injury interruptions. Like DMACC lately, you just can't get him on the park. He looked like a house on fire in pre-season a couple of years ago, and then we haven't seen him since. So, and that's not his fault. That's just the way it's been, with the injuries that he's copped. I think this year he got a bit more football into him. He looked good at training from when I went down. He was moving really well. He's a big size sort of player. Could definitely play in the midfield, could play at half back. There's some flexibility with Coff. Just depends on what Ross sees in him. I think it's worth persisting with, but yeah, that's another one where people are like, Hunter Clark, Nick Coffield, we tried, it didn't work. Do we then move them on and try and replenish with other youngsters and play it a bit smarter in this year's draft? I think it'd be really bad if we got rid of 2 first-round picks 6 years after we got them. That's a fail, but sometimes that happens. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, Saners, on Hunter Clark and Nick Coffield. Oscar Adams obviously delisted. Ronnie Burns, I think based on his form, I think he deserves a contract, don't you think? I mean, I was pushing for him to be the sub in the final. I think we needed leg speed, and I didn't think Stocker brought that. I thought Burnsy, especially when he came on against Brisbane in the last game of the year at the Gabba, had 12 in that third quarter, finished with 16, was really, really good. He looks like a player that's really bought into what Ross is bringing. And yeah, he's got his limitations, but he's also got a huge tank. He works very hard. He chases all day. He's got two-way running like some of these players don't, that I've already mentioned. And his disposal got a little bit better. And he's at that demographic. He's still young, still a lot to learn. I think, to me, he's kind of that Robert Eddy, McQualter sort of ilk, where you're not going to be the star, but, you could turn him into a really, really good... sort of top 6, bottom 10 sort of player, and they're role players. That's what they do. So I think Ronnie Burns deserves a contract, absolutely. Tom Campbell's another one. Isaac Keeler, Max Heath coming on with Rowan Marshall. We obviously might be linked to Marbio Chol, so there's some development there in the ruck stocks. He's been killing it at Sandy. He's not on big money, so as an ultimate experienced backup, you'd think 1 year, just an additional 1 year would be okay. You're not going to trade him, you're not going to delist him, I don't think. I think that'd be pretty harsh, but he was second, I think, in the Sandy BNF this season, so I think he deserves a contract. Tom Highmore, from what I've seen at training, it just doesn't look like he suits what Ross Lyon's trying to do in the back line. There was one particular time where he took a mark at training, match sim, and he took a very nice mark, which is what he does. He reads the ball well, he's a good marker. But he was so slow to move the ball on. And that's the benefit, you look at Cal Wilkie, marks it, instantly knows where he's going. Even Josh Battle marks it, doesn't slow the game down too much. Cordy even moves the ball on a little bit quick. So there was a few times where he moved it on very, very slowly, and Ross, I could hear just say, move the effing thing forward, go forward. Because he was just chipping it sideways, and, as much as, we wondered why he didn't get a game. He was killing it at Sandy, and that's VFL level's different. We have to remember that. There are very good VFL level players that just will never translate into the AFL. There have been games where Tommy's played in the AFL and he's been good, but that was not under Ross Lyon. So standards have changed, game plans changed, opinions have changed. So I would not be surprised to see someone like Tom Highmore maybe be a shock, to move on, or, just not offered a contract again. I don't know how that situation will work out, but it wouldn't surprise me if Tom Highmore isn't a Saint next year. And Zach Jones, this is a big one because I think he's been injury prone, but he brings experience, and even in the couple of games he played this season, every year it seems he plays only the 5 or 6 games, but he plays 2 or 3 really good games, and you could see how much that type of player we need in the midfield. Against the Giants, if you have a fit Zach Jones, it completely changes the look of our midfield. But you're relying on him to get fit and to play more than 10 games, and we haven't really been able to rely on that for the last 2 seasons, really. So to me, I think based on his experience and his size and the fact that he brings a point of difference to the midfield, I would keep him on. I would offer him a year. I would give him 1 more year. If he doesn't get his body right, then you make some tough calls. But I think just give him 1 more year. I think our midfield's too weak as it is, that if we're getting rid of, the Hunter Clarks, the Bytels, the Greshams, the Joneses, all in one off-season, you're thinking, wow, we're really cutting the fat there. But I think Jonesy, I think similar to Burns, brings a bit of pace, and most importantly, he brings experience. So I would keep Zach Jones. So that's the list of uncontracted Sainers at the moment. There's going to be a lot of moving parts, I reckon, in the next couple of weeks, Sainers. I'll try and keep you updated as I can. I just wanted to do a quick video to wrap up sort of where the list is at. Obviously, there are other players that have question marks on them. I haven't mentioned Dougal Howard because obviously he's contracted, but that's, news that will take place, I guess, when the trade period starts, and any rumours, any sort of things that, come up. In the meantime, I'll bring on the channel, as you know. So that's uncontracted. Those are the players there. Let me know in the comments what you're feeling. Are you, are there going to be some surprises there for you? Who do you think is going to stick around? Who should we persist with? Maybe who should we move on? As harsh as that sounds, that's the name of the game. That's where we're at right now. We know Ross Lyon was always going to do that. He was always going to use this year as that year of exploration, try and look at everyone across the board, and then make the harsh calls at the end. So I'll wrap it up there, Sainers. Thank you very much for watching. There'll be plenty more of this in the next couple of weeks. But until then, enjoy the rest of your week. And as always, go you mighty Sainers. See you guys.